one of the things that video games, one of the many things that video games are better at than any other form of visual storytelling is communicating character through gameplay, which obviously no other visual storytelling medium has gameplay, so like it won the competition that only it was capable of entering. But like I'm playing Senran Kagura, which is just a daily occurrence in my life now, I guess. And like it just always strikes me how these characters move when you're playing them. They all play completely differently. There's like 30 fucking characters in this game, and none of them play exactly the same. It's which in itself is an impressive fucking feat. Like, but what like jumps out at me about it is the way you can infer so much about them as characters via the the way they play. Like the fucking character who's got the drumsticks as her weapon. Like she's got that one fucking attack, Renka. It's at the very end of the video I did on it, where like she one of her special attacks is like she just starts wailing on this fucking drum, and it like traps everything like in front of her in it, and it goes like back and forth and just hits them over and over and over like for a massive hit string, and she's just like and then it does a close up on her face, and her face is just like yeah, nigga, yeah, and like it's the like every time it happens it makes me feel like so like righteous, like yeah, right on, fucking A. And it's so fucking like that without a single line of dialogue, without a single like story beat whatsoever, you understand a little bit about who this character is as a person through how they fight. And that's something that like the only other like it takes exceptional acting and directing to get that out of like you know movies, for example, Akira Kurosawa movie Yojimbo has the main character, and he's always kind of like shifting his shoulders, and he's kind of like like he's always kind of itchy or uncomfortable, and like he's got ticks, like, and Akira Kurosawa made sure to do Toshiro Mifune, that's the actor's name. Akira Kurosawa like kind of does that with all of the characters in all of his movies. Like he always tells his actor to like figure out one visual motif in your performance and do it a lot, like throughout the entire film. Like just keep doing it, and it adds personality. And like this is something that like video games kind of have a long history with. Like I remember back like in the early days of the Xbox, Sam Fisher was famous because they didn't mocap him. Like that was a big thing that they thought was really important when animating Sam Fisher, is every other character like was mocapped, like they had actual like mocap actors perform the animations and put them in the game, but Sam Fisher was entirely animated via like they moved him with the computer. Like how you move a 3D model around in like Gary's mod, like that's what they did with Sam Fisher. Every single one of his moves was handcrafted. It wasn't a performance. It was handcrafted, and that lended a lot to his identity as a character, as this fucking ninja, this modern day ninja, this super spy, capable of physical, not like superhuman, but like just well and above the average skill set of the soldiers that he would be dealing with in his missions. And like in the Yakuza games, which are like sort of like 3D brawler type games, but with like a Shenmue style open world to run around in. All of the characters have different fighting styles, and all of them have different moves in their fighting styles and the way they fight. And like one of the best like things that exemplifies that is in Yakuza 0, which is a prequel to the first game, and Kiryu fights very, very differently from what his fighting style. And what's great about those games is they're chronological. So, like, every game, you start out with all of the moves that you learned in the previous game. Like, as you level up, you learn new moves, and you don't have to relearn them. It doesn't have that Metroid problem where you lose all of your upgrades. Like, you turn on Yakuza 3, and Kiryu starts out with every single move he had in Yakuza 2. So by the time you get to Yakuza 5, Kiryu is just this untouchable god beast who's just running fucking circles around almost every other character. Certainly the goons, like the nameless goons that you gotta deal with. And then you go back to Yakuza 0, which is a prequel, and he's this unproven, untested, young fucking, buck. And, like, he's just kind of cutting his teeth. Like, he's still, like, noticeably stronger than a lot of the other people that he deals with. Like, he's got a lot of, like, just raw animal fucking potential. But he's it's unrefined. His fighting style is much less refined. And that comes across as you're playing him. He feels a lot less, composed and disciplined than he does in the future games. And that's even more pronounced because one of the like unlockable fighting styles you can get in Yakuza 0 is the fighting style from Yakuza 5 with like the fully upgraded, maxed out 100% Kiryu from the older games. And the difference is just so stark, it feels like you're playing a completely different character. Because, of course, Kiryu in 1986, I think that's when it takes place, in 1986, in the 1980s, is a completely different human being than who he is 3 decades later, in 2015. Really excited for Yakuza 6, by the way. For that to never get fucking localized, because you motherfuckers aren't going to buy Yakuza 0. You gotta buy Yakuza 0, guys. You gotta buy Yakuza 0. I don't care if you don't have a fucking PS4. You gotta buy that shit. That's something that, like, fighting games have an abundance. Also, like, fighting games rarely, like, less and less nowadays, but rarely do they have any kind of story elements whatsoever. So it's this pure, narrow, vibrant focus on character. And like if it's a good fighting game, all of the characters are going to play completely differently. Like if you watch footage of fucking Killer Instinct, every single character has a completely overwhelmingly different like gameplay style from all the other ones. Like if you play fucking Street Fighter, all the characters play differently. Like some characters are Shoto, some characters are charge characters, some characters are like combo strings like fucking Karen. But like it's all pretty much the same kind of deal. It's all, learn the input, do the input, and then you'll do the move. And then like it comes down to like individual strategy. But like in Killer Instinct, every character has completely different mechanics to them entirely. Like the fucking Skeletor, what the fuck is his name? Skeleton Man. Like he's just this insane fucking ridiculous like meter character that doesn't make any sense to me. Like you gotta build up skulls and it gives you buffs and you can use them again, and it's like fucking insane. Like you have Jago, who's pretty much a Shoto. You have Glacius, who's practically a ranged character. Like he's best from like way across on the other side of the screen, shooting fucking ice balls at the other guy, and like you don't need to know the story. It's a fighting game; it doesn't really have a story. But you look at these characters, these crazy, vibrant, fucking outlandish characters. Like there's a fucking raptor dinosaur robot, and there's a zombie chick like fucking Sadako from The Ring, and she's like, and she fights with this spear, and it's the weirdest fucking contortionist shit I've ever seen in my life. And you look at them, and you get a very intense sense of who these people are, or what they are. Like, you get all this information about their personality through how they control and the animations of their moves and whatnot. And I just always found that really impressive, and it really jumps out to me whenever I see it. Like in any other medium, you kind of have to waste time, so to speak, establishing a character. You have to the worst example is like you have a character monologue or just raw exposition being like, "Oh, this is my personality traits, and this is my history, and this is how I will behave in any given situation." Like you've seen stories where the characters are just like, "I'm going to explain to you what my personality is," and not actually exhibit it at any point. And those, that's even giving it the benefit of the doubt that those characters will remain consistent with what their personalities are established to be at the beginning. Like, there's other characters who don't have a personality, who claim to have a personality, but really they're just a bland, nothing piece of shit. But, you still have characters, wasting screen time establishing who and what they are and what they do. Whereas with a video game, it just gives you control and you play it and instantly you understand if it's a good game. If it's a good game, you don't need that. You play it and that's your introduction to the character. You understand who the character is and what they do, and a little bit about who they are based purely on how they play and how they move on screen. Like one of my favorite examples is fucking Solid Snake, who especially Raiden also with his flips compared to Snake's rolls. Raiden flips in the air, and that it's really great. Even Revengeance, which I think is an abysmal fucking dumb rock horrible game. Revengeance gives so much visual personality to the way Raiden moves and controls. Half of it's ripped off from cutscenes from MGS4, but those were non-playable. So, but Snake in Metal Gear Solid 1 plays kind of stiff and blocky. That's how you might describe the graphics, but when you play it, you can't. There's this wonderful moment where you're standing on a catwalk and you call Master Miller, and he's like, "Oh, you're on a catwalk. If you run on a catwalk, you're gonna make noise, and the guards are gonna hear you. What you should do is you should walk slowly along the catwalk, very deliberately with your feet." And then Snake kind of grunts and goes I can't do it. And Riddle's like, "You can't walk?" And it's yeah, when you're playing the game, Snake is either standing still or at full sprint. Like, you move the stick, and he's like, boom, he's going. Like, fucking 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. I don't know if that's a good... Is that a good time? Anyway. Um, and that really comes across, like, especially compared to the range of movement that he develops over the series. That's another one of those examples of, like, Kiryu and Yakuza. Japanese games especially are really good at this. Where, like, be tangent, where Snake starts out with a very limited range of movement and capability, and he pretty much is like he's like a in MGS1. It's kind of like a bull in a china shop, and you're just like wading through this bloodbath, getting through that game. And of course, Snake's character, as revealed in the cutscenes, and like you can always criticize the MGS games for like having a very thick thick wall between gameplay and story, but in terms of the character of Snake, his character is that he's just this bloodthirsty, insane murderer, this nihilistic psycho who just like has no meaning or purpose to his life outside of the battlefield. Or like he just like, I've never felt alive unless I was staring death in the face. I don't have any friends or family, but I was raised by many people. And like Psycho Mantis talks to him and he's like, fuck, I thought we were bad. Compared to you, I'm a saint. He's this like insane, literally genocidal fucking psychic killer. And he looks at Snake and he's like, fuck, man, at least I'm not as bad as you. And like that's supposed to be this commentary on you, the player. Like it's supposed to be one of those like you like Liquid Snake has a moment. You enjoy all the killing, don't you? Do you deny it? And it's supposed to be like in that scene, Liquid Snake is literally talking to the camera, to you, the player. Like you're playing this video game because you just get a fucking rock hard dick about murdering people. And that's Snake's character, but then, you know, the series is good enough that it evolves upon that, and Snake starts to accept the fact that about his more darker inclinations, and he starts, you know, focusing it on doing good. And then from then on in the series, from MGS2 onwards, the ability to play through those games completely non-lethally, and relatively speaking, without, you know, a pure stealth run also, is readily available. It's completely possible to play through every single Metal Gear Solid game, barring a few, like, story sequences, from 2 onwards, completely stealth, completely non-lethally. And to be fair, you don't like you only play as Snake in MGS2 in the beginning on the tanker, and then in MGS4, which, but like the point is, you can see how Snake's like character changes in the same way that he changes in terms of gameplay, and he's at his most dynamic in 4, where his range of gameplay options and capabilities synchronizes with his self-actualization as an individual, and he, you know, has this very straightforward driven purpose to his existence. And like I'm sure you can think of your own examples of other characters in other games you've played where like you play them and you're like, oh, this character like just has a really vibrant personality in how you play them. Like, even games without a story. Even games like, you know, Mario 64. Mario, not the deepest character, not the deepest story, but, like, you play as him, and there's so much, like, yahoo! Waha! You know, like, it all comes through in the movement. And that's why I always resent, you know, like analyzing games in comparison, like just as the most evident example when you compare it to movies, for example, like, oh, this it's so cinematic or whatever. And it's like, instead of embracing what makes games unique that no other medium can accomplish, you want to just, oh, let's compare it to other things. Like, Samus never had a character. She never had a character. Other M is good because she talks. She literally just has monologues where she explains every single fucking thought, insipid fucking thought that goes through her head. And she has a, she never had a character before. No, yeah, because like fucking driven, stoic determination. That's not a character. Something that she exhibits without a single line of fucking dialogue throughout the entire series previously. Like, even like discounting the fucking Metroid Prime games, which are amazing. Like, even discounting those, like, oh, you can't fucking infer anything about her character from the way she deals with situations as you're playing her. Oh, she walks into the, like, even discounting like the story moments, just purely on gameplay. She walks into the room with the fucking baby Metroid at the beginning of Super Metroid. And she's like, hey, baby Metroid. And then Ridley appears, and he's holding baby Metroid, and he's flying around. What do you do? What do you do as the player playing as Samus? You immediately start shooting that motherfucker. You're like, holy shit, boom, 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 I'm gonna fight this guy. What does that tell you about her character? You don't need fucking dialogue. You don't need story to understand who a character is. We are not what we say we are. We are what we do. Play a fucking video game, you fucking nerds.